Most people get one shot at life, and when their time is up, their life is over. How different this was for Tanya Shadrick. Less than 10 days after she gave birth to her first child, she nearly died at the age of 33. Twice. When Tanya was 32 years old, she found out there was a baby on the way. Tanya and her family began to prepare, but nothing could have prepared them for what was about to happen. Tanya's pregnancy seemed to be over in the blink of an eye, and she was soon in hospital holding a beautiful baby boy. As she looked into her baby's eyes, she was thinking of all the possibilities, who this young boy was going to become, and what he would look like as he aged. She was so grateful she would get to witness it all. After 10 slow days in her baby bubble, Tanya was told she, her partner, and her baby could leave the hospital to go home and start the parenting journey together. Tanya was overwhelmed with joy as she was discharged from the hospital. She gathered her things and was almost levitating with excitement. Her plans to start the new chapter of her life were ready to begin. Everything went according to plan, or so it seemed. The day the midwife signed the papers for her to go home was the day her life would drastically shift its course. Tanya was just 33 years old when she came face to face with her untimely demise. Twice. Everything was so sudden. Tanya went from arriving home and relaxing on her couch to being rushed away in an ambulance with copious amounts of blood leaving her body. At first, no one could really grasp what was happening. Tanya was sitting on the couch watching TV as her baby slept. She was suddenly overcome with an intense rush of symptoms. As her heart rate increased, she was feeling faint and incredibly cold. What seemed like cups full of blood began rushing from out of her. As her symptoms became worse, the blood became more evident. It seemed to be flooding the sofa. As Tanya stood up, the puddle of blood followed her. She called out to her partner in such a panic, and he was by her side in an instant. Tanya's partner called an ambulance as she tried to catch the blood with her hands. Every time she moved, a trail of red blood followed her. Paramedics arrived instantly, and Tanya was diagnosed with a postpartum arterial hemorrhage almost immediately. Tanya had lost so much blood that walking was merely impossible. She was assisted to the ambulance by the medics. The speedy journey to the hospital made her deadly situation very clear. Tanya laid on a stretcher while she was barely conscious. As her eyelids fought to stay open, her eyes rolled around in her head. The thought of her newborn baby was all she could think about. Tanya first lost her life in the back of the ambulance, but that's not where her life ended. She was quickly resuscitated. As she came back around, she found herself laying on a hospital bed, covered in blood and surrounded by doctors. She was confused on how she had got to the hospital so fast. As the doctors were too busy trying to stop the bleeding, no one had told her her heart had actually stopped while she was still in the ambulance. She was on the brink of death with many things on her mind. She remembers there being no pain, just lots and lots of blood. Doctors and medics frantically tried to save her, but Tanya's body gave up once again. The blood that pooled around her was frightening for everyone who witnessed it. It was like a murder scene. Her face was ghostly, and the veins that circled her body seemed to protrude as they fought to stop the hemorrhage draining her of life. Instead of being consumed by fear, Tanya was seemingly strangely calm. This wasn't the usual reaction, so of course this worried the doctors, possibly due to the blood that was rapidly leaving her body, or maybe because she saw something no one else could. She was overwhelmed with a feeling that not even death could take her from her child. Her mind fought, but her body was stiff. Tanya was put into an induced coma that lasted 2 days. While being in that coma, she was unable to fight anymore. Her fate was in the hands of the professionals. Oblivious and in a deep sleep, Tanya was subjected to another catastrophic event. The blood wasn't slowing down, and she almost lost her life again. It would have been permanent this time. Once again, almost like magic, Tanya's heart began beating. The doctor's work had paid off. After 2 days of surgery, treatment, blood, sweat, and tears, Tanya was awoken from her coma. When recalling this incident, she describes it as a gift. It was a beautiful experience because she knew nothing could separate her from her family, not even death. She didn't see any bright lights or hear a voice from above. Unlike many other near-death experiences, she was just present. She was alone, with only memories surrounding her. As she thought about every path she had taken that had led her to this moment, she lay still. She wasn't going to allow herself to slip into the never-ending void we know as death. The thought of her child kept her at peace, and the thought of all the things she was going to do after recovering kept her alive. Tanya's recovery was far from easy, but she was too busy thinking of all the things she was going to do with her life. She barely noticed this. This experience has awoken something in her. She had an unbelievable amount of strength and had so much to tell. As she sat in a recovery room, she recounted the thoughts she had experienced. From the short time from the hemorrhage starting and being put into a coma, Tanya had reevaluated the entirety of her existence. She realized it had taken her life almost being over to realize it hadn't even begun. She had so much to do and say, all whilst raising her newborn baby. From the moment she had awoken in hospital to the point where she was finally home, life never had a dull moment. As she sat on her couch with her baby in her arms, she felt fulfilled. And this was when her life truly began. Not letting her traumatic experience hold her back, Tanya quickly went on to have another baby. The near-death experience made Tanya leave her career in higher education, and she was on the hunt to find ways to share her story. She had dreams of writing a book to share her experience with the world. Tanya believed people would want to hear her story, and she was right. Her dream quickly came true. As of today, Tanya is 48, and her book, The Cure for Sleep, is 1 year old. Her children, being 13 and 14, Tanya is described as being a free and wonderful mother. In Tanya's book, it recalls the 5 things her experience had taught her. People were so fascinated, everyone wanted to hear it from her firsthand. Countless podcasts and article writers around the UK had invited her to share her story for what it truly is. She learned life was too short to be worrying about little things, like working a job she didn't truly enjoy. She continues to share stories and write books about every aspect of her life, including the incident that almost ended it. She brought to light the struggles of pregnancy and how it isn't always as smooth sailing as it is often portrayed in the movies. It comes with a lot of risks and even more unspoken issues. Despite the risks in almost losing her life, Tanya never blamed her children. For Tanya, her pregnancy was magical. It showed her the true meaning of life, and she is forever thankful. Being able to create a human inside of you, seemingly from scratch, is a gift within itself. Creating and nurturing a lifelong friend was something Tanya longed for. As Tanya's pregnancy came to be the calm before the storm, she wouldn't change it for the world.